So let's learn today about the law of detachment. It's an important law in geometry. So here's the formal definition. The law of detachment states that if you have a conditional statement and the hypothesis of that conditional statement is true, then the conclusion of that conditional statement must also be true. So this is kind of confusing, especially if you don't understand what a conditional statement is. I do have a video on what a conditional statement is, so you can go and watch that. So let me give you some examples that will help you understand this. So with conditional statements, we always have if-then format. So let's use a geometry example, because you can use a real life and a geometry example. So the first example I have here is if two lines are parallel, then they never, sorry about my writing, they never meet or cross. So this is a conditional statement because it has the if-then part. And this in geometry or in math it's considered the hypothesis portion. So this is the hypothesis, and then here is the conclusion. So if two lines are parallel, then they never meet. So that's the conditional statement. Now the second part is the hypothesis. The hypothesis is if two lines are parallel. So if this is considered to be true, so if the hypothesis of the conditional statement is true, then we can say that the conclusion is also true. So if this is true, then the conclusion, which in this case is the then portion, so then they never meet, so they never meet, must also be true. So essentially we have the conditional statement, if two lines are parallel, then they never meet. The if portion is the hypothesis part, then they never meet is the conclusion. So if the hypothesis portion is considered to be true, then the conclusion must also be true. That's what the law of detachment is. Now this is a geometry example. Let me give you a real life example. Maybe that'll help you remember it. So here's the real life example. So let's say if it is raining, then the ground gets wet. So the if it is raining portion is the hypothesis portion, and then the ground gets wet is the conclusion. So with the law of detachment says that if the hypothesis of the conditional statement is true in that it is raining, so it is raining, then the conclusion must also be true. The ground gets wet. Now, I think this helps you understand a little bit better, but I think we use the law of detachment a lot when we're doing proofs. I will be getting to some proofs later on, simple proofs. They can get very complicated and difficult, but I will get to them, and this is something that you really want to understand and remember. So again, remember, The law of detachment states that if you have a conditional statement and the hypothesis of that conditional statement is true, the conclusion of that conditional statement must also be true. So this was the geometry example I gave you at the beginning, and this is the real life example. I hope that was clear. If anything was not clear, please leave a comment. If you liked the video, please put a like and subscribe.